Are you brave enough to venture deeper into the cursed territory? Tonight's tale will haunt your dreams and make you think twice before dipping your toes in the ocean. Before we dive into this terrifying story, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss our next bone-chilling tale. Now settle in and prepare yourself for the abomination from the abyss. I never imagined a simple beach outing would become the most horrifying night of my existence. Looking back, I should have known better than to pursue the girl they called Crazy Amanda. This is the story of how my foolish attempt to impress her led us face to face with a nightmare beyond comprehension, a terror that still haunts me to this day. It was the final year of high school, and like most 17-year-olds, my friends and I had one thing on our minds: girls. There was one girl in particular who caught my eye in physics class. Her name was Amanda, and she was breathtakingly beautiful. Some guys called her Crazy Amanda because of the wild stories her exes told, but that only intrigued me more. Little did I know, her craziness might have been a survival instinct, a sixth sense for the unexplainable horrors that lurk in the shadows. My best friend Jonas was always the smooth talker of our group. He had a way with words that could charm anyone, and he managed to convince Amanda's friend Suzanne to join us for a late-night beach trip. The best part, Amanda agreed to come along. This was my chance to finally make a move on the girl of my dreams. If only I had known then that my dreams would soon turn into nightmares. Friday night rolled around and the weather seemed perfect, warm with a gentle breeze coming off the ocean. There was something else in the air too, a kind of electric tension that I mistook for excitement. Jonas picked me up in his beat-up Chevy at 10 p.m. sharp. I hopped into the passenger seat, my heart racing with anticipation. We had it all planned out. I'd try to get some alone time with Amanda while Jonas worked his magic on Suzanne. As we drove to pick up the girls, I couldn't stop fidgeting. What if I said something stupid? What if Amanda thought I was boring? Jonas must have sensed my nerves because he reached over and gave my shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "You got this, man," he said with a grin. If only he knew the true horror that awaited us, he might have turned the car around right then and there. When Amanda and Suzanne climbed into the back seat, the car filled with the scent of their perfume. I turned around to greet them, and my breath caught in my throat. Amanda looked stunning in a flowing sundress, her long dark hair framing her face perfectly. She flashed me a smile that made my heart skip a beat. But there was something in her eyes, a flicker of unease that I should have paid more attention to. The drive to the beach was filled with laughter and playful banter. By the time we arrived, my confidence had grown. As we climbed out of the car, I caught Amanda's eye and she gave me a shy smile. Things were looking good. The moon hung low and full in the sky, casting an eerie glow across the landscape. The beach parking lot was empty, our car the only sign of human presence for miles around. We made our way down to the shore, the sand cool beneath our feet. The beach was completely deserted, which only added to the romantic atmosphere. Or so I thought. Now I realize that emptiness should have been our first warning. Jonas, true to the plan, smoothly suggested that he and Suzanne take a walk down the beach. They disappeared into the darkness, leaving Amanda and me alone. We wandered to the water's edge, letting the gentle waves lap at our toes. The ocean stretched out before us, a vast expanse of inky blackness under the starry sky. It was the perfect setting for a magical evening. If only I had known then how quickly that magic would turn to terror, how the beauty of the night would transform into a canvas for unimaginable horror. Amanda and I found a spot on the sand and sat down, gazing out at the horizon. We talked about our hopes and dreams, our favorite books, and our plans for the future. I was captivated by every word she said, hanging on each syllable as if it were precious gold. But as we chatted, I couldn't help but notice how Amanda's eyes kept darting towards the water. At first I thought she was just admiring the view, but then I saw a flicker of unease cross her face, a tension in her body that spoke of primal fear. "What's wrong?" I asked, concerned. Amanda pointed towards the ocean, her hand trembling slightly. "Do you see that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the gentle lapping of the waves. I squinted into the darkness, trying to follow her gaze. At first I saw nothing but the gentle roll of the waves, the moonlight dancing on the water's surface. Then something caught my eye, a long vertical shape rising from the water about 50 yards from shore. My first thought was that it must be a piece of driftwood or maybe a buoy. But as I stared at it, I realized it was moving, not with the motion of the waves, but with a deliberate, almost human-like movement. A chill ran down my spine, and I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I stood up, moving closer to the water's edge to get a better look. As I did, the shape seemed to sink back beneath the surface, disappearing as if it had never been there at all. It looked like a person, I said, my voice shaking slightly. But who would be out swimming at this time of night? Amanda grabbed my arm, her fingers digging into my skin with surprising strength. "Let's go somewhere else," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't like this. It feels like it's watching us." I nodded, suddenly eager to put some distance between us and whatever was in the water. As we turned to walk away, I could have sworn I heard a soft splash behind us, as if something large had moved through the water. We walked further down the beach, trying to shake off the eerie feeling that had settled over us. I tried to steer the conversation back to lighter topics, but Amanda seemed distracted. Her eyes kept darting back towards the ocean, as if expecting to see that strange shape again. The romantic atmosphere had evaporated, replaced by a growing sense of unease. We found a new spot to sit, this one further from the water's edge. I hoped that being away from the waves would help Amanda relax. For a while, it seemed to work. We resumed our conversation, and I even managed to make her laugh a few times. But there was an undercurrent of tension that wouldn't go away, a feeling that we were being observed by unseen eyes. But then, just as I was starting to think the night might be salvageable, Amanda froze. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her eyes wide with fear. I listened intently, straining my ears against the sound of the waves. At first I heard nothing but the gentle whisper of the wind and the rhythmic lapping of water on sand. Then a soft splash reached my ears. It wasn't the natural sound of waves lapping at the shore. This was different, deliberate, almost like footsteps moving through shallow water. I felt a wave of cold wash over me, as if I'd been plunged into icy water. The sound came again, closer this time. Splash, 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 like something large dragging itself through the surf. We both turned towards the ocean, and that's when I saw it. The shape was back, but this time it was closer to shore, much closer. In the moonlight, I could make out what looked like a human silhouette, unnaturally tall and thin, standing waist-deep in the water. But there was something wrong about its proportions, something that made my mind recoil in horror. Amanda let out a small scream, quickly muffling it with her hand. The figure in the water didn't move, but I had the horrible sensation that it was staring right at us. Its head, if you could call it that, was elongated and misshapen. Where there should have been arms, I saw what looked like writhing tentacles, glistening wetly in the moonlight. I wanted to appear brave, to protect Amanda, but fear had frozen me in place. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. The thing in the water took a step forward, water cascading off its grotesque form. I caught a glimpse of rows upon rows of needle-sharp teeth in what passed for its mouth. "We should go," Amanda whispered, tugging at my arm. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. We scrambled to our feet, our eyes never leaving the motionless figure in the water. As we backed away, it took another step towards the shore. Its movements were jerky and unnatural, like a marionette controlled by an unskilled puppeteer. We turned and ran, our feet kicking up sand as we sprinted back towards the car. I could hear splashing behind us, growing louder and faster. I dared a glance over my shoulder and immediately wished I hadn't. The creature was on the beach now, its lower half still hidden by the water. It was pursuing us with a relentless, nightmarish determination. "Faster!" Amanda cried, her voice tinged with panic. We pushed ourselves to the limit, my lungs burning with exertion. The car was in sight, parked just a few hundred yards away. But every time I looked back, the creature seemed to be closer, its inhuman form lurching forward with terrifying speed. We reached the car and threw ourselves inside, slamming the doors shut. Jonas and Suzanne were already in the front seats, their faces pale with fear. "What the hell is going on?" Jonas demanded as he fumbled with the keys. Before I could answer, a loud thud echoed through the car. Something had slammed against the side hard enough to rock the vehicle. "Just drive!" I shouted, my voice cracking with terror. Jonas needed no further encouragement. He turned the key and the engine roared to life. We sped out of the parking lot, the tires screeching against the asphalt. As we pulled away, I caught one last glimpse of the creature. It stood at the edge of the lot, watching us with those unblinking nightmare eyes. The ride home was a blur of panic and confusion. We tried to make sense of what we had seen, but the more we talked, the less it made sense. By the time we dropped Amanda and Suzanne off at their homes, the adrenaline had worn off, leaving us exhausted and shaken. The days following our encounter with the unspeakable terror of the ocean passed in a haze. School felt irrelevant, and everyday conversations seemed empty and distant. Jonas and I avoided any mention of what happened that night, but we couldn't escape the memories that haunted our dreams. One evening, a little over a week after the incident, I received a text message from Amanda. She sounded disturbed and anxious, asking if we could meet somewhere private to talk. My heart raced as I read her message, the fear of that night bubbling back to the surface. I agreed, and we decided to meet at a secluded park near her house. When I arrived, Amanda was already there, sitting on a bench under a flickering street lamp. The light cast eerie shadows across her face, making her look almost ghostly. She looked up as I approached, her eyes wide with fear. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice trembling. I didn't know who else to talk to. I sat down beside her, my mind racing with possibilities. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Amanda took a deep breath, then pulled out her phone and handed it to me. "Look at this," she said. I took the phone and saw a series of photos. They were dark and grainy, but there was no mistaking what they showed. The creature from the beach, standing in various locations around Amanda's house. "I've been seeing it everywhere," she whispered, her voice barely audible. At first I thought I was imagining things, but then I started taking pictures. It's real, and it's following me. A cold chill ran down my spine as I flipped through the photos. The creature was always just on the edge of the frame, its monstrous form barely visible in the shadows. "Have you told anyone else?" I asked, my mind racing with fear and disbelief. Amanda shook her head. "Who would believe me? They'd think I was crazy." She looked up at me, her eyes pleading. "You're the only one who knows what we saw that night. Please, I need your help." I nodded, my mind made up. "We'll figure this out together," I promised. But even as I said the words, I felt a gnawing fear in the pit of my stomach. How could we possibly fight something like that? Something that seemed more nightmare than reality. As we sat there trying to come up with a plan, I heard a rustling in the bushes behind us. My heart jumped into my throat and I turned to see what it was. At first I saw nothing but darkness. Then, slowly, a shape emerged from the shadows. It was the creature, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. Amanda let out a scream, and we both sprang to our feet. The creature took a step forward, its grotesque form illuminated by the flickering street lamp. It was even more horrifying up close, its skin a sickly, mottled grey, covered in what looked like barnacles and seaweed. Its mouth opened, revealing rows of needle-like teeth, and it let out a low, guttural growl. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing Amanda's hand. We took off down the path, our footsteps echoing in the still night. The creature gave chase, its movements unnaturally fast and jerky. I could hear its wet, slithering sounds behind us, growing louder with each passing second. We rounded a corner and saw a small maintenance shed up ahead. Without thinking, I pulled Amanda towards it. We reached the door and I yanked it open, shoving her inside. I followed, slamming the door shut just as the creature reached us. It slammed into the door with a force that rattled the entire shed. I quickly locked the door and backed away, my heart pounding. Amanda was huddled in the corner, her eyes wide with terror. "What are we going to do?" she whispered, her voice shaking. The creature outside let out another growl, the sound reverberating through the thin walls of the shed. I looked around, trying to find something we could use to defend ourselves. There was a rusty shovel leaning against the wall, and I grabbed it, holding it in front of me like a weapon. "We'll hold out here until it goes away," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. But as the minutes ticked by, it became clear that the creature had no intention of leaving. It circled the shed, its claws scraping against the wood, its growls growing louder and more menacing. I could feel the walls vibrating with each impact, and I knew it was only a matter of time before it broke through. Just when I thought all hope was lost, I heard a voice calling my name. It was Jonas. "Over here!" I shouted, my voice cracking with relief. A moment later, the door burst open, and Jonas stood there, holding a baseball bat. "Come on!" he yelled, beckoning us outside. We didn't need to be told twice. Amanda and I rushed out of the shed, and Jonas swung the bat at the creature, hitting it square in the chest. It let out a roar of pain and staggered back, giving us the chance to escape. We ran as fast as we could, not looking back until we were safely in Jonas's car. As we sped away, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the creature standing in the middle of the road, watching us with those unblinking eyes. It didn't follow us this time, but I knew it wasn't over. This was just the beginning. We spent the rest of the night at Jonas's house, trying to make sense of what had happened. None of it made any logical sense, but we couldn't deny what we had seen. The creature was real, and it was after Amanda. We needed to find a way to stop it before it was too late. As the first light of dawn began to creep through the windows, I made a vow. I would protect Amanda no matter what. We would find a way to defeat this nightmare, even if it meant delving into the darkest corners of the unknown. Because sometimes the only way to conquer your fears is to face them head-on. Days turned into weeks, and despite our best efforts, the creature continued to haunt Amanda. It seemed to grow bolder with each passing day, appearing not just at night, but in broad daylight as well. We were running out of time. One evening, as we were poring over old texts and obscure rituals, Amanda let out a gasp. "This might work," she said, pointing to a passage in an ancient book. It described a banishment ritual that required a sacrifice. My heart sank. The thought of losing anyone was unbearable, but we were desperate. We prepared everything for the ritual, gathering the necessary items and heading back to the beach where it all began. As we set up, the air grew colder and an oppressive silence fell over us. We knew it was coming. Just as we finished the preparations, the creature emerged from the water, its form even more grotesque and menacing than before. Amanda began the incantation, her voice strong and unwavering. The creature screeched and writhed, clearly in pain. But then, something went wrong. The wind picked up, howling around us, and the ground shook violently. Amanda faltered, and in that moment of hesitation, the creature lunged at her. I tried to intervene, but it was too fast. Its claws slashed through the air, and Amanda's scream was cut short as it dragged her into the ocean. I stood there, frozen in horror as the water swallowed them both. Jonas grabbed my arm, pulling me away. "We need to go now," he yelled, and we ran, leaving behind the beach and the nightmare that had claimed Amanda. In the weeks that followed, I was haunted by guilt and grief. Amanda was gone, and the creature was still out there. I had failed her. We had tried to warn the authorities, but no one believed us. The town carried on, oblivious to the lurking terror. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but it wasn't. The creature continued to haunt my dreams, and I knew it was only a matter of time before it came for me. I could feel its eyes watching, always watching. If you enjoyed this story and want more spine-chilling tales, make sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Share your thoughts in the comments below and let us know what other horrors you'd like us to explore. Thank you for listening, and remember, the next time you find yourself alone at night, keep an eye on the shadows and an ear out for the unknown. You never know what might be lurking just beyond the edge of the light. Sweet dreams, if you dare to sleep.